I'm your host, Chloe, and welcome to Whispers of Southern Ohio. This is the podcast where we follow the folded hills, the dark hollows, and the old stories that the people of Appalachian Ohio have passed down for generations. Stories that don't always have easy explanations and don't always have clean endings. Tonight's episode is one of those. It comes from a man who has spent years walking these hills, listening to the land, and putting words to things that most folks would rather leave unnamed.
Thank you, Chloe. I'm Mark H. Rowe, and what you're about to hear is rooted in the oral traditions of Southern Ohio, in the creek beds, in the limestone ridges, in the wood smoke, in the silence. The story of Bring Hollow is the story of a place that has never fully let itself be known, and in some ways, it never should.
Mark's novel, The Night Bigfoot Took Her, treats the creature not as a spectacle, but something older than spectacle, something that belongs to the land the way the sandstone belongs to the ridgeline, inseparable, patient, and indifferent to whether we believe in it.
The hills don't ask you to believe in them. They just are. And when something moves through those hills that you can't explain, you go quiet, because the hills taught you that.
Tonight, Mark and I are going to walk you through the world of Bring Hollow, through the fog, through the trees, and through the story of a young woman named Maddie Kessler, who vanished one autumn night and came back wrong. Stay with us.
There is a hollow south of Chillicothe, down past the county roads that stop being maintained and the fence posts that have given up standing straight, where the locals call it Bring Hollow. They don't explain the name. They don't need to.
The first thing you notice when you enter the hollow is the quiet. Not the ordinary quiet of the countryside at night. This is a different kind of quiet. A listening quiet. The kind that makes the hairs on your arms rise because something in your bones understands that the silence isn't empty. It's occupied.
Maddie Kessler was 19 years old the night she walked into that hollow and didn't come out. Not the way she went in. What came back 3 days later wore her face, wore her clothes, knew her name and her mother's name. But everyone who looked into her eyes knew. Something had changed. Something had been left behind in the dark.
Mark, when you were writing Bring Hollow, how did you think about the land itself as a character?
The land in southern Ohio isn't backdrop. These hills are some of the oldest landforms in North America. Terrain that hasn't changed significantly in hundreds of thousands of years. That kind of age gives a place weight, memory. When I wrote about Bring Hollow, I thought of the hills as something that accumulates. Each generation that has moved through that land has left something behind. The Shawnee, the early settlers, the miners, the families who stayed when the industry left. The land holds all of that, and something in the land holds it too.
The creature in your book, you never give it a simple name. You call it the thing in the trees, the knock, the patient one. What was behind that choice?
Naming something gives you the illusion of power over it. You label it, file it away, move on. I didn't want readers to be able to do that, because the people of Southern Ohio never did. They described what they experienced. Something knocked in the trees. Something watched from the ridge. Something moved through the fog with intention, not randomly, not like an animal spooked and running, but deliberately, like it knew exactly where it was going. That deliberateness is the most unsettling part. Not the size, not the sound, the intelligence.
Tell me about the knock, because that is one of the most effective elements in the book.
Wood against wood. Slow, deliberate, resonant. Something heavy striking a dead tree trunk in a rhythm that doesn't match any natural sound a person could name. Intentional percussion. The Shawnee who lived in this region had a specific warning about it. Don't follow the knock. Not, be careful if you follow the knock. Not, you might get lost. Don't follow. Full stop. No negotiation. That warning survived through generations of oral tradition because the people who heard it understood it wasn't advice. It was the difference between going home and not going home.
And in your book, somebody follows it.
Caleb Whitfield follows it. He's 22, grew up in the Hollow, heard the stories his whole life. He's at that age where stories feel like things other people believe. The night Maddie disappears, he hears the knock from the East Ridge, 3 beats with a pause between, like a countdown, and he goes toward it. Not out of bravery, out of the particular arrogance of not quite believing.
What does he find?
He finds Maddie's jacket hanging from a branch at a height no person could have reached. He finds deliberately broken branches, each one at shoulder height for something that stands at least 8 feet tall, moving in a straight line toward the deep sandstone caves. He finds footprints in the creek mud, bipedal, enormous, the stride of something moving with mass and unhurry. And then the knock sounds again, from somewhere very close. And Caleb Whitfield, who doesn't believe in things like this, runs. He runs and he doesn't stop until he hits the county road. And he never goes back to that hollow. Not willingly, not once.
You write Maddie's disappearance in a way that's deliberately withholding. We never see exactly what happens. We see the fog, we see her walking toward the tree line, we see Ruthie Combs watching from the porch of her grandmother's house across the field, and then she's gone.
Ruthie is 11 years old, and she watches the whole thing. She sees Maddie stop at the edge of the field, just stop mid-step, and then the fog moves. Not drift, not roll. Move, like something breathing, like the hollow exhaled and pulled Maddie in with it. Ruthie stands on that porch for 3 hours without calling out, without going inside. Ruthie is 37 years old in the present-day sections of the book, and she still won't stand on a porch at night.
That detail is extraordinary, the way the trauma attaches to something as ordinary as a porch, as nightfall. It becomes the container for everything she can't say.
That's how it works with things we can't process. We don't carry the event exactly. We carry the ordinary things that surrounded it. The smell of wood smoke, a certain quality of silence, fog moving through trees at the edge of a field. Those become the carriers, and they never let go.
The sandstone caves are almost a second character in the book. You describe them as places where the creature dens, returning there for longer than anyone can measure.
The sandstone formations in southern Ohio are ancient seabeds layered and carved by water over millennia. The caves go deep enough that people who've explored them report a quality of darkness unlike ordinary darkness, a density to it, an absence of even ambient light. When I was writing the den scenes, I thought about what it would mean for something truly intelligent to have lived in those caves across centuries, what it would know, what it would remember. Something that old, that embedded in the geography, it wouldn't behave like an animal reacting to a threat. It would behave like a landowner.
A landowner. That word changed how I read the whole book.
It's more than territorial. Territory is about keeping things out. What this creature does is more deliberate. It watches. It observes across seasons and generations. Sheriff Dale Pruitt has spent 30 years as the law in that county. He has a file cabinet in his basement he's never shown anyone, not deputies, not his wife, not his children. 40 years of incident reports, photographs, footprint casts, witness accounts in his own handwriting. He's never filed them with the state. He keeps them because they're true, and he keeps them locked because the truth would only cause panic. Pruitt has made a kind of peace with the thing in the hills, a silent agreement. You stay in the hollow, I'll keep people off the East Ridge. He's not sure the agreement is mutual, but nothing has broken it. Yet.
Pruitt represents a certain kind of Appalachian pragmatism, not denial exactly. He knows. He's just decided that knowing changes nothing.
His grandfather told him a story about a winter long ago when livestock went missing from 3 farms in 1 week. A tracking party went into the hills. They came back 4 men short. No blood, no signs of struggle, no trace. The 4 were simply gone. And the community, tough, practical, God-fearing, decided by silent consensus to leave that ridge alone. Pruitt inherited that consensus the way you inherit a property line or a debt, not by choice, but by being born into it.
Maddie comes back on the 3rd day.
Tell me about that, because in some ways, the return is more disturbing than the disappearance.
She walks out of the fog at dawn. No injuries, no visible marks, her clothes unworn, as if preserved. She knows her name, her family, her history. She eats breakfast, sits at the kitchen table, talks, but there's something in the cadence of her speech that has shifted. The way she holds still when she's looking at something. Too long, too absolute. The way an animal freezes when it's deciding whether a thing is a threat. Her mother is at the sink washing a dish, and she hears Maddie laughing at the television, and she turns, and for just a fraction of a second, she doesn't recognize her daughter. Not the face, the presence, the quality of something behind the face. And then it passes, and her mother goes back to the dishes and never speaks of it. But she doesn't sleep well after that, not the way she used to.
Maddie herself never talks about what happened.
She says she doesn't remember, and that might be true. Or the memory might live somewhere that language doesn't reach, somewhere below the surface, in the part of her the hollow kept when it gave the rest of her back. What's clear is that something in Maddie is still oriented toward that place. She drives past the county road sometimes and has to grip the steering wheel and look straight ahead and keep going. The woods want her back. She knows that. She doesn't know how she knows, but she knows. And the knowing is the price she pays for having come back at all.
Let's step back. What is it about Southern Ohio that makes it such fertile ground for this kind of story?
Appalachia has always had the official story and the real story running parallel without meeting. These are communities with deep roots and a very sophisticated relationship with the land they live on. Part of that sophistication is knowing what the land keeps, knowing that there are things in these hills older than any human settlement, with their own relationship to the geography, and we are only visitors here. The oral tradition in southern Ohio holds accounts that don't fit standard categories, and rather than force them into existing boxes, the tradition has always simply held them, let them exist on their own terms.
There's something genuinely moving in that. A community holding a story it cannot explain, without needing to resolve it, without needing to classify it. Just, yes, this happened. We don't know what it means, and that's where we'll leave it.
The land keeps memory in a way that human institutions don't. Institutions need resolution, classified, documented, filed, closed. But the creek that runs through Bring Hollow has been running for 10,000 years. It doesn't distinguish between yesterday and a century ago. It just carries it. That's what gives places like this their weight. You're not walking on ground. You're walking on accumulated time. And if something in that accumulated time is watching you walk, it has every right to be there. More right than you do, probably.
Where does Maddie's story sit in the tradition of Southern Ohio? Is she a unique case, or does she represent a pattern?
There are accounts going back well before the 20th century of people taken and returned. Sometimes it's simply a person walked into the woods and came back different, quieter, more oriented toward edges, drawn to windows at night, unable to sleep deeply, living in two places at once, the place where their body is and the place where part of them never left. Maddie fits that pattern precisely. The hollow gave her back her body. Whether it gave back everything else is a question the book asks but never fully answers, because the hollow doesn't deal in full answers.
Do you believe it, personally, that some places watch, remember, keep their secrets?
I believe some places have accumulated so much of what has happened in and around them that they've developed something that functions like memory. Whether it's sentient, whether it has intention, I genuinely don't know. What I know is that when I've stood in the places that inspired Bring Hollow, really stood there, quiet, at dusk, fog coming in from the east, I've felt observed, not threatened, just known. Like the place was aware of my presence the way a very old person is aware of a very young one walking into the room, patient, attentive, in no hurry about anything.
That image is going to stay with me.
The very old person, aware of the very young one, patient, in no hurry. That's the emotional weight of this landscape as well as I've ever heard it described.
The hills don't need us to hurry. They've been here far longer than we have. Maddie left something behind in that hollow. The hollow left something behind in Maddie. That exchange, unwilling, unconsented, permanent, is the most honest metaphor I know for what it means to be deeply from a place. You don't own it. It owns you. Thank you for joining me on Whispers of Southern Ohio. If you'd like to explore more of my work, you can follow me on my Amazon author page at amazon.com/author/Mark H. Rowe and visit me at markhrowe.com for more stories, books, and updates. Until next time, keep your lantern close and your curiosity closer.